everyone. Welcome to the Founders Foyer with me, Aishwarya. This foyer is full of hallway conversations, the space where creators, builders, and founders can look for all the inspiration and foundational concepts and support that they want to grow their products and businesses. When was the last time you worked on a project? Or, when was the last time you really debated which idea to work on? Because this is super exhausting and often leaves us confused with what to choose on and what to work on. And this isn't new because most of us face this with managing our energy, time, and effort. And today's conversation is exactly that. How to navigate such phases and getting past that to work steadily on our ideas and products. Joining me today is Amy Young, founder and CEO of Redefine Possibility, also formerly a top partner lead in Google's global partnerships. She's been coaching executives and leaders on mindset changes to align effort with high performance. Hi, Amy. Let's hit it off from here.
Hi, good to see you. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, yeah, I'm super pumped up to talk to you about all things building staff and managing performances. So, let's start with the first exciting phase of working on ideas. Most of us are super enthusiastic. The time we get an idea, we just run ahead and then we do all our research, we analyze, and then there's a little bit of a phase that comes in between, which is the self-doubt. So how do you think one should cope up with the fear that arises with starting something new every day?
Yeah, here's the thing to realize about fear is something to work with, not fight back against. As I've done more research into neuroscience and how our brains are just formed, we haven't evolved all that much since the original caveman days where our brains' jobs were literally to help us survive, right? It was survival of the human race. So anytime we did something outside of our comfort zone, our brains were literally hardwired and still are hardwired to kind of push back against us, right? To maybe throw shiny object syndrome in our way, have us focus on something else so that we stay inside our comfort zone. Because our brain at a fundamental level doesn't understand the difference between stepping outside of the cave and getting attacked by a bear, right? To us stepping outside of our comfort zones now and trying something new. Our brain is just worried that something is going to kill us. So just understanding ourselves and the way that we're made up so that we understand that fear is actually something that is built to try and protect us. So when we look at fear, if we're afraid of doing something, if we're feeling resistance, right? If we feel like something's pushing back against us, it really helps to kind of step objectively outside of the feelings that are tied to that and say, wait, okay, how real is this? How is this fear in this moment trying to help me and keep me safe? Right? Almost like physically creating fear as something more tangible that we can look at and talk to, so that then we can decide if we really want to let this hold us back. So when we see it more as a friend that's trying to help us or something that we can thank, but tell them that we really don't need, that removes some of the power dynamic and it shifts it back to empowering us versus the power being with the fear, so that we're able to work with it and move beyond it versus just fighting back against it and trying to push through it, because our nervous system's natural response then would be to just tighten up and not do anything.
Yeah, totally. I think, like you just mentioned, it's absolutely okay to feel that fear, but I really really agree with you on the point that we have to take a step back and think about it objectively. So that really makes sense. And that's, I guess, the first start to working on anything, from an idea to probably doing a new activity or just going on to eat your food. Whatever it is, just stay and then take a conscious decision of why do you want to do this and what's the purpose behind it.
Yeah. And look, here's the thing. It's perfectly normal. Fear is a natural response. And so sometimes I think as founders or entrepreneurs, right, or anybody who's driven, we think oh gosh, I should know, I should have all the answers. I shouldn't be afraid to do this thing, right? I feel so passionately about it. And we take fear almost as a signal that maybe we're doing something wrong, or that maybe we're not, doing the right thing, or we shouldn't be doing this, when it's more about just understanding the role that it plays, right? Biologically and how we're built, but then also why it's there. So to your point, absolutely, to be able to look at it objectively is just to form that relationship with it is really important and helpful.
For sure. And, now that you're talking about the fact of how the weight of, why am I doing this? Because I should always be right. Or always is labels around being right and being just enthusiastic about it all the time. When you just go and introduce yourself as, hey, I'm a creator or I'm a founder and I'm an entrepreneur, automatically the weight of just being there doing great things is following us. So, which leaves it very hard to accept certain doubts or certain low phases. So what's it like to tackle this extreme passion and also the phases when there is lack of this?
Yeah, it's a great question because almost every single entrepreneur that I met, worked with, studied, like whomever, has all experienced what's been referred to as like the dip, right? Which is that like you're riding this high because of what you're doing, and then it gets hard, right? And so you're kind of in that dip period, and the key is to kind of lean in and understand that it's normal. This does not mean, right, that anything's wrong with us or our idea. It's just we've reached the point where things are going to get hard. And right now it's all about what we do in that moment. So knowing that, and this is why having a community can be so helpful and so important, to be around people who have been there before and to keep a mindful head about yourself, to know what's real versus just what's a feeling and where we are in the moment. And to know that having those days where we're not motivated, right, where we're second guessing, where we're questioning ourselves, it's all completely normal. And I think when we understand that and we can find communities and other folks who have been there right alongside you that you can confide in about these dips is really helpful. And I would say also, you're leading a wonderful and creating a wonderful community, right? Go to the people on LinkedIn, right, who have created content, who are vulnerable enough to say, hey, I have these days too. Right? Start following these folks because it's going to normalize those days for you in a way where this is a season, this is a phase, and I will come out of it, no matter what that looks like, just so we don't feel quite as isolated and alone with us. Oftentimes that can be the first kind of step to really helping get through those days or seasons or moments where we're just in it, because we all have that.
Yeah, completely agree with you. And I think you made a great point with respect to taking that first step to reach out to somebody. Because most often when it comes to communities or trying to build a relationship or a network, it's often from the angle of what do I get from this? Or, like what's the immediate big thing that we do as together? It's never getting to the root of, hey, I have this problem or I have this challenge. Let's just figure this out. And I really would like to know what to do. So getting to the vulnerable or the kind of the basic stuff that you want to talk about, your emotions, and also the fact that you're trying to build that into what you're doing is very important. And thanks a lot for making that point.
Yeah. I will say that the most powerful, one last point, the most powerful example of leadership that I ever saw was when I was at Google, and our manager, the president of our department, in a town hall came out and told us what he had failed at. Like, in addition to, hey, we hit these goals, we did this, we did that. He said, but here's a goal I didn't hit. I set this goal for myself and here's what happened and I didn't hit it. So that example of how he failed, and he literally said, like, this is what I failed at, this is what I learned, and now here's what I'm doing differently going forward. That example of vulnerability and like just created such psychological safety, like amongst the group, to admit that we failed, to admit that we're struggling. It was such a powerful moment for me in terms of what a leader can do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that lesson would have stood with people much more than the actual positivity that somebody would have tried to share. I think this is more poignant, and this is more like in terms of understanding what's the next step. This is more clear and setting the path forward, I guess.
Yes, totally.
Yeah. So, we're just talking about building that network and having that community to talk to. So often founders or anybody who's creating something hears is that, hey, just go out and build your inner circle, like a circle of friends or a circle of mentors or advisors that you can always relate with, and then just go talk to them. But how should you go about finding and cultivating that circle? I think one step you mentioned, of course, is going on LinkedIn or going on platforms to find these people. But apart from that, do you have like any specific thing that's worked for you in the past?
Yeah. Honestly, talking about what you do to people. I mean, it's really whether you're at a family event or I have 3 kids. So if I'm doing a pickup from school, in conversations, it comes up. What do you do for work? How is that? And I've made such powerful connections just because someone says, oh, my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law, so-and-so, or I know someone who kind of does something like that or could use your services. Or so literally just by talking about who I am and what I do, I've been able to create connections and widen my network in a way that, yes, I still go to networking events. I'm a part of my alumni association for my university, which has been a great resource for me. They have career development resources. They have a wide alumni network outside of New York City where I live. During COVID, I joined 4 or 5 different digital communities. One was for female entrepreneurs. A few others were more tied to the coaching industry, but I kind of just kept joining until I found one that fit as well. And then once I found that one, that's the one I chose to lean into, right? There's nothing wrong with joining and deciding, hey, these aren't my people, right? And going, but who knows? It could be the absolute right fit and right group for you. And so now I've cultivated friendships and relationships with people from across the country, just because now with the digital marketplace and networking marketplace kind of opening up because of COVID, it's actually never been a better time to try and expand your network and get some of those resources to help you through this journey, because everything now is so much more online than it was before. And you can now decide if you want to join something in person or if you just want to be, in a virtual format.
Yeah, I think things are more accessible, whether it's resource or whether it's people. The fact that the both of us are chatting now itself is an example of that, I guess. So, totally agree with you on that. And I think the way I see it, from what you mentioned, is just make everyday conversations count. Like, just talk about you, talk about what you're doing, and just don't have networking is never about having a goal and then trying to achieve that, but most often just picking up with everyday threads and everyday chats and conversations is what I see.
Oh, completely. And here's the thing. If you're excited about what you do and that energy is coming across to someone else, they might not even understand what you do, but because you're so excited about it, they're like, oh, I want to help you, right? It's like people are attracted to that energy. So just never underestimate like what your energy brings to a room, to a space. That is contagious. So even if like you might not be the most confident person, or you feel like I need to be 3 steps ahead before I start networking because I need to have my elevator pitch all figured out, or I'm just not there yet, right? No, just go. If you're passionate about what you do or your idea, just take that to a room. People can read through if you're trying to sell them, usually like miles and miles away. They want to connect to somebody who is just genuinely showing up and excited about what they do. And also never underestimate how much people love to talk about themselves. So I've been in situations where maybe I don't know much about the topic, right? Or what that person does, but I just asked them to tell me more. I just said, how did you get into that?
Yeah,
right?
That's a great strategy.
What's the hardest part, right? People love to talk about themselves. So if you're ever in a conversation, you're like, I don't even know what to say or do, or ask them about themselves. And it usually is a really good starting point.
Yeah, I think you will get to know a lot more stories, not just about them, but rather their interests, what you're into, and probably 1 or 2 points that you can take away.
Oh, completely. And we're all human, right? Sometimes we don't want to be at some of these networking events, whether we, just think we should go or we're forced to go. And so having a human connection is something that you just remember. Right? Those are the people that you're like, oh, okay, if I'm ever at this event again, I'm going to look for that person across the room, or I'm going to ask them, how's their business going? What's going on? That's how you form those relationships, is by connecting at a more human level. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Thanks, Amy. I think those are some great points to follow. And I think for those folks hearing this, yes, the next step is to put themselves out there, and at the same time, try and pick a thing or 2 from the others that they're chatting with. So yeah, definitely. So, the other important thing that I wanted to talk to you about is the concept of boundaries. Because when we start working on our products or anything that we're creating, often we run into not just the doubt part that we were talking about, but also a lot of uncertainty, a lot of exhaustion, or like managing day-to-day stuff. All of this gets in the way. So what levels of boundaries should someone practice for having this sense of growth and sort of a progress in what they're building? Whether it's to grow their idea, or whether it's to deal with a burnout, or just restarting something from scratch. How do you expect somebody to navigate this?
Boundaries are one of the most important topics, I think, for people to talk about, for people to understand, because they are, without them, any person in general, but especially entrepreneurs, builders, people that are, whether they have a full-time job and it's a side hustle, or whether it is your full-time thing. If you do not have good boundaries that you can hold yourself to, burnout is so much more likely, because we're giving, and we're not filling our energy tanks up themselves. So I'm so glad that we're having this part of the conversation, because one thing is we need to know ourselves, right? We need to know, what are our must-haves in our daily life, right? Like, do I need 7 hours of sleep, or am I okay on 5, right? Everybody's kind of different that way. Do I do my best work in the morning? Do I do my best work in the evening? And depending on what that answer is, how do I protect that precious time? So there's loads of questions that you can ask yourself about the best environment for you to work in, the ways that you work, what opportunity, if you are somebody who's juggling a full-time job and a side hustle, what are those pockets of time that you can create? And you need to protect those in addition to your energy as much as possible. So once you know yourself, then it's about trying to figure out, okay, now what boundaries do I need to put in place? And whenever I'm having these conversations with clients or organizations, there are different types of boundaries, right? Some are brick walls, right? Some, like for me, it's my health, right? My mental health, especially. Like I know if I'm hitting the wall, like my boundary line then becomes a wall, because I know I have to stop working and I have to get 7 hours of sleep. If I haven't been getting it, like that for me is just a strict wall type boundary. Versus some boundaries could be like metal fences, right? There's certainly boundaries, but there's still a flow of things that can come in and out, right? So an example of that might be like exercise is also something that I have to move my body every single day, both mentally, spiritually, and emotionally and physically for my health. But some days that's a walk, right? Some days it's just like, I'm so tired, I'm just going to get out and I'm going to walk around my block. And that is how I'm going to get my exercise today. Otherwise, yeah, I might go out and run 5 miles first thing in the morning. But depending on my schedule, depending on what's going on in my life, I need to be a little bit more fluid and flexible with that boundary, right? It's something that I know I'm creating time for, but there's flexibility with it versus some things that I just know that I need to get and really hold to every single day. So I've just talked about knowing yourself, right? Deciding what type of boundary you need to set. And then the last piece that's critical that a lot of people don't even think about is, who do I need to communicate my boundaries to?
Yeah,
so
very
I talk
important.
a lot about like stakeholders and working with different stakeholder groups in some of my work. But even just at a human level, right? I said, I'm a mom, I have a spouse, I've got 3 kids, they've all got teachers, they've all, and so if I've got a rough work week coming up, and I know, right, there's certain things that I'm going to need to get through to the week, I sit down and I have a conversation with my kids and I say, like, look, it's a big week for mom, right? I've got a lot going on. This week, I really need to make sure that I'm going to sleep by, 10 o'clock at night. So I need your help, right? Because there are going to be nights where dad's going to put you to sleep or, something else is going to go on. But if they don't know that, right, then they're coming at me at all hours of the night for certain things. And I start to get resentful because I'm like, well, I have this boundary, right? And I need to be in bed by 10 o'clock. But they didn't know, right? They didn't know that that was something that was important to me. So it's on me, right? That I didn't let them know. And then the resentment comes in and then I snap and then I yell and I'm angry. But the same thing can happen at work too, right? Like if we say with our manager, if you have a manager, right? I'm going to stop emails at 8 o'clock tonight because I really want to be present with my family, right? But I don't tell my stakeholders or my manager, or my coworkers or co-founders that, right? And they're slacking me or they're emailing me, all hours of the night, they might be thinking that I just don't care, that I'm not dedicated. When really, no, it's just I needed this night, right? I needed this night to my family because we've been working a lot. But if we don't tell them, right, it breeds resentment, it breeds mistrust.
Yeah.
So who do you need to communicate your boundaries to, as well as an important thing that a lot of people kind of miss that last, they do all the good work and then they miss the last step and then they think it's not working. So they then try and, tear everything down again.
Oh my God, that's such a crucial point, I should say, because like you said, it's most often we just get ourselves in to the best job possible, but that last one bit of letting folks know why you're doing this, why you wouldn't do this, and like, what's your viewpoint on this is definitely the one that can make or break the whole situation. So yeah, totally agree with you there, AB. And I also feel like this is something that you have to set with yourself, like coming back to the first 2 points that you mentioned. It's not just for the stakeholders, but also being very clear on where's the hard stop that you want to give for yourself, and where's that thing that you can discount and let a few things in just so you enjoy both the moment and what you've planned for ahead. So yeah, I guess it's sort of a balance the way I see it.
Oh, 100%. And here's the thing too, right? Boundaries can change. Just because like I made the example of like 1 week, right? You can have a boundary for a week that you need. You can have a boundary for a quarter. You can have a boundary forever, right? If it's something that's important to you. But if you are not protecting your precious brain space and your energy, you really can't be good to anyone else. So it really has to start, to your point, with you and building those for yourself first and foremost. Yeah, absolutely.
Totally. Yeah. So now that we're talking about building boundaries and sort of managing our emotions, our effort, and all the day-to-day activities, there's another important thing that I wanted to ask you, which is for folks that we're talking about who balance a full-time career with something that you want to build on the side, which could be like a fashion project, or which could be something that could later on become a full-time part of their life. What are some simple decision-making techniques that you would suggest? Let's say I'm just to you and asking you, hey, Amy, can you help me out? What would you tell me?
So I think I've talked a little bit about protecting your energy, but I really think that, you have to be so connected to the why behind what you're doing and why it's so important for you to be doing it. We talked about the hard times, like all of these. That is what is going to get you through. So I like to talk sometimes about energy vampires, right? And these can be people, these can be activities, but these are the things that just drain your energy so much. When you are carrying the load of a founder or a creator, when you have to literally have access to so many different parts of yourself and your brain, you have to be so protective with who you give your energy to and who you let take from you, that it can be really hard sometimes to maybe step away from some people or stop having conversations at a particular time. Just because if you need to be in that mode where you are on and where you are pitching or you are creating, that can take a lot out of you. So you have to do absolutely everything in your power to protect your time, right? Your energy, to make sure that you are able to show up in the best way possible. So it goes back to really just knowing yourself, knowing how you're built and what you need. That's going to enable you to show up to the table and really bring your whole and true self to no matter what you're creating. But you are you for a reason, right? And there's only one person that can do what you do and bring it to the table. So you need to put yourself in a position, right, where you can be that, show up and energetically and intentionally be that person on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I mean, show up not just in terms of committing to what you're building, but show up even for yourself, for the person that you want to grow into, and basically like for you and for what you're doing. So yeah, makes absolutely sense. Yeah.
So I'll also add, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I'll also add to that, it's a journey. And so for a lot of folks, I think having a vision is another important part that sometimes we can get lost through. So I have coaches and have colleagues and myself, like we really lean into doing that vision work with clients and encourage people to know, okay, where do you want to be in a year, right? When you're 85 and you're staring back at all the beautiful and wonderful things that you've done and created in your life, right? Like, what have you done? Who are you with? When you're 85 and you're like, I did all these great things. I'm super confident, right? That future self that's just like on top of the mountain, right? That person, what does that person feel like on a daily basis? What do they look like? What do they eat? Like, what decisions do they make, right? The more you can connect with that ideal self who's already there, right? No matter what your goal is, whether it's building a huge unicorn company or whether it's just like having, a really good, juicy, fulfilled life. When you can connect with that person and then figure out who they are, what they do, right? Start outsourcing your decisions to them, to that future person, right? Okay, I'm feeling stuck in this moment. Okay, well, what would she do? What would he do? Right? The person in that vision, how would they handle my future badass self? How would they handle this situation? Right? It can be helpful to kind of use that future person as a guide to your point when you're facing some of these decisions or you're just in a rough spot.
Amazing. I think we often build roadmaps, vision, and strategy just for products, but I guess we ourselves are also into the same picture. Like, just think about where you want to be, and that's a great practice, and I think a great takeaway for somebody from the show is not just reflect on your past self, but also project to your future self and see what would she be, what would he feel proud of, and just take that as the direction that you want to move towards. That's amazing. Absolutely good. Yeah. All right. So I think we are nearing to the end of the session, which is when I'm going to ask you one major part of what this whole project is all about, which is to have the supportive space for any creator, any maker, any builder who's just looking to know, hey, I know you've been there. Can you just tell me what is up? What am I supposed to do? So this is the focus of this whole project. So considering that, I have this team of it's going to be all right. So let's say I'm walking up to you and asking you, hey, Amy, can you give me like 3 thoughts that you would put on 3 sticky notes about it's going to be all right that you want to say to any creator, any founder? What would it be?
Yes, I love this question so much. It's so phenomenal. So the first one is definitely like, there's only one you. There's only one you, right? And so for me, at least, I see that as, oh, so only I can offer these unique gifts into the world. There's a reason why I can't do what you do, right? And there's a reason why people connect with me and not others. There's a lot of other coaches, right? In this space. There's a lot of other founders. There's a lot of the other creators, right? But there's only one us. We were built and we are all here for an amazing reason. And so like, get out there, create, because I need to hear what you have to say. You're giving me a gift by being yourself and being that one and only you. So like, please, like we need to hear what you have to say. The second one that I have, I actually have this little quote on my desk, and it's like that. I'll read it. I'll read it here. But life isn't about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself.
Yeah. So true.
It resonates with me so much because I do have days where I'm like, oh, am I going in the right direction? Like, what's happiness, right? Like, am I happy sometimes? All of these. And it's like, no, like it's not a destination. It's all about the process, right? And how we're living and Absolutely. How we're being, right? And then the last one, I actually have this. I have this on the mirror in my bathroom. And as a sticky on my pad, it just says, do a good job. You're doing a good job. I think that often we so get stuck in thinking about the things that didn't go right. The things that aren't going well, the challenges that we have, the solutions that aren't being built. We're behind on a project, right? And just at the end of the day, we don't celebrate ourselves enough. We really, really don't. We hit a milestone and it's all about like, what's the next one, right? We don't often stop to appreciate where we are. And so just that daily reminder, I mean, even as just a parent and as a founder, right? Someone who's got my hands in just a lot of different things, just to see that reminder every day that, you're doing a good job. It just helps me feel good and keeps me feeling like, okay, I got this. I got this.
I love that. I love that. I love all the three, and especially the last one that you mentioned, because I think we've all been there, right? Like we've all like seen the first milestone. We're like, okay, this is great, but what's next? Like, where am I headed towards? And I just keep going in the journey, but we often just don't appreciate ourselves enough. We just don't sink into that moment to really take in and really feel happy about, hey, you've done a great job here. So I was reflecting on this very recently that often I've been like a person who jumps from, okay, this is done, let's just go on to the next one. But I think taking some time off to really appreciate just for being yourself is super important. And I'm so glad that you made that point.
Yeah. So I have two ideas for you on that, if that's something that you're trying to do. One is one thing that my coach has me do, which I went into kind of kicking and screaming, but I love it. And then the second thing is another personal development speaker has talked about that she bought champagne bottles for every goal that she had. And she wrote on a note, like, okay, when I have 1,000 subscribers, right? Or when I sell my book becomes a New York Times bestseller, right? And she would write those on the bottles and she wouldn't touch them until she reached her goal. But when she did, she had those champagne bottles waiting for her.
That's a sweet idea. Yeah.
That was a really great idea. And then what my coach has me do is she has me every night. I have to write down at least 5 yay me's. Like my yay me's, like things that I'm like proud of, accomplishments, like the fact some nights that I just cooked dinner, right? Like it can be big or small, right? But these are ways that I have to celebrate myself on a daily basis.
Wow.
Because especially from my corporate days, like, I was a box checker, right? I was like, okay, did this, got this done, got this promotion, right? Blah, 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 blah. And it's like, you pick your head up and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted, right? This wasn't as fun as I thought it was going to be here. I don't feel. So you have to take a moment to, create those lists or create those moments of celebration, whether it's a champagne bottle or just I did the thing today. I'm celebrating myself before going to bed. That's just two things to think about easy things that you can kind of think about to do for yourself.
Absolutely. No, I think somewhere it's a very transformational moment for you to go from just being a box checker or just being like, oh yeah, I've just achieved this goal, to actually celebrating yourself every single day. And I'm really going to dig into the 5 ways concept because that's really sweet. I mean, like, yeah, I would definitely do it at the end of each day and really feel happy about waking up and then going on to doing the huge thing that we are ahead with. But I guess every little day, taking some moment to be appreciative of what you are and who you are is definitely crucial.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Because again,
two good activities.
We are. Yeah. We're all, at the end of the day, we are all hopefully going to lead these long lives and look back and go, okay, what am I proud of? What did I do? What was my contribution? And if we're so heads down, right, focused on the thing or the box or whatever it might be, we don't see the beautiful moments, right?
Yeah.
We don't create that. We can't lead when you're like this, you can't look with intention at what all the opportunities are, at what's facing you. So it can be hard. Like, here's the other thing, it can be hard, right? We all have days where we need to be laser focused, but let's just balance them out with the days and the activities that then we are excited about, the things that do make us love our work and our families and whatever we have in our full busy lives, so that we can appreciate them and celebrate ourselves and be good humans in the process.
Yeah, completely true. And I think that's a very sweet note to end this whole episode and the theme of, what kind of self-care should you really look into when you are building something new, building something from ground up, just the little bit of notes that you have to refer to, the kind of support that you need from peers around you, because, hey, we're not completely distant from you. We're right there to help you out. So, thank you so much, Amy. It's been such a fun session for me. I've learned a lot from you, from your experiences that you just shared with me. And I'm pretty sure that for folks who are hearing this, it's going to be a great, inspiration and a great moment for them to look up to you in terms of, hey, I think she's done that and let me also try it. So that's the kind of thing that I want people to, really feel about listening to this, the whole session. Yeah. So thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, thank you. It was my joy. Thank you so much.
Awesome.